Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third part of our series in the IT career pathways. So tonight we're going to be talking about careers in data, cloud, and web/app development. Once again, thank you for being here. Um, just so you know, these series there's been a lot of interest in this series. So there is a likely chance that we are going to repeat them again this semester, probably in April. So stay tuned. So if there's anybody that you know that may be interested, we're going to do them again, most likely. So just keep on looking at our website for future dates. But with that said, welcome again. And we are just going to start. Welcome to everybody online. So next slide, please. Again, so tonight we are doing the third part of our series. Those of you who have joined us for all three parts, thank you so much. If not, that's okay. If you're joining us tonight for the first time, yeah, welcome. The other two parts were recorded. We are recording the session today as well, and they are available at our YouTube channel. Everybody that registered for this session, regardless if you attended or not, is going to receive an email with a link to the recording, which will be posted in our YouTube channel in the next couple of days, and also a copy of this presentation in PDF format. Just for everybody's knowledge, the presentation does contain links, and the copy that you will receive in PDF format, those links will be active so you can investigate further. So again, our first 3 weeks ago, we started this series with our general overview of IT career pathways. And last Wednesday, we went a little bit more in depth for careers in support, networking, and cybersecurity. And tonight, we're going to be talking in careers in data, cloud, and web/app development. For those of you who attended last week, this is going to be very similar. We are going to be talking about the specific functions, some of the titles that are in these areas, and also we're going to be talking about the skills that are required, both hard and soft skills. And we are going to be talking about like job growth projection and also some salary statistics. All right, so let's start. Next slide, please. And by the way, thank you to my colleague Anthony here that is helping us at the station. And for those of you who are joining us online, if you have any questions or comments, please post them on the chat and Anthony will relay them to me. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, no problem. So the objectives, thank you. That's all right. Let's go back to the objectives. I think we're going, yeah, there you go. Thank you. All right, sorry about that. So the objectives for today's session, again, we're going to explore the career paths in data, cloud, and web app development, discuss the skill training, certifications, I forgot to mention that, the salaries and job outlook for these careers, and we're going to talk at the end about some other helpful resources. Next slide, please. All right, so again, this is a repetition for all of you that have joined us before. This is already you've already heard this, but bear with me. This is for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time tonight. So who am I? I have over 20 years of experience in the IT industry. And during these 20 years, I have done a little bit of everything. So I started building computers and, I've done support, I've done system administration, I've done cybersecurity. And in the past couple of years, I have switched a little bit more to the instruction side. So I have a bachelor's degree in technical management with a concentration in business information systems and a master's degree in cybersecurity. I currently hold the CISSP certification. We talked about that one last week. It's a cybersecurity specific certification and is considered an advanced certification. But we're going to talk about certifications today about the three fields, okay? So my current role, I am the Technical and Training Development Coordinator here at the Ignite Hub. And a little bit about me, a little fun fact is like I love to read, and I'm also a big fan of anything Star Trek, so I'm a Trekkie. All right, so that's about me. Let's go to the next slide. And we are going to skip that, usually. But so let's start. We're going to start with the data career paths. And if we go to the next slide, the first thing that we are going to talk about is like the common functions in this particular field, okay? And for those of you who attended the first session, we talked a little bit about this, but so it's going to be a little bit of repetition. But again, why data? Data is one of those, when we started this conversation, we talked about three fields, in reality, four fields that are considered very hot right now in IT. And those are cybersecurity, again, because the reason being it's that there's so many more devices today and many more users, and the cybercrime has grown exponentially. So as the crime and the types of attacks have grown in number and different types, so that's why we need more defenders. Um, so we also talked about why the cloud, and we're going to be talking about two of the other hot fields today, is going to be data and cloud, and the fourth field is going to be AI, which is a new growing and exciting field. We talked a little bit about that in our first presentation. So why data and why cloud? Data is a growing field again because we are collecting, everybody's collecting so much data these days that we have a need to turn that raw data, which in its basic form is really not usable, into information. And then if we put that information into context, that becomes intelligence. All right, and that's going to be reflected here when we talk a little bit about the functions. So when we get to the cloud, we're going to talk about also why it's a growing field. But the main thing here with the data, it's again, there's vast amounts of data being collected everywhere and by everyone. But this data needs to be made sense of. And then again, I think 20 years ago, probably the only data job that it was most popular was like database administrators or DBAs. Some of you that may have done that or remember those days, that was the foremost data job, which was basically taking data from, basically from pen and paper type of situation, analog data, and turn it into digital data and storing it. So that was the big thing. We're trying to convert, at that point, we're trying to convert analog data into digital data. Now the problem is different. It's like we are generating so much data that we need to analyze it. So let's look at these functions. First of all, the first one that we have is data mining. And as the name suggests, it's like mining for like minerals or for gold. So let's think about mining for gold. When you are mining for gold, you need heavy equipment and you need to really take a lot of material, okay? So you take half of a mountain pretty much in order to get, I don't know, 2-3 kilograms of gold, if you're lucky. So the same thing with data. When you're collecting data, you are collecting vast amounts of information. Most of the stuff that we collect is actually not usable and it's trash, but we are collecting all that. So you need to kind of find that gold. So data mining is the process of just collecting that raw material, that raw data. And then we need to analyze it. That is the first step. So when you have that thing, just like in mining gold, you need to start sifting through the rubble to break it down into smaller pieces and to start trying to look for those little nuggets of gold. Again, this is the same thing here. So data analysis is taking that raw data and trying to turn it into information. Okay, so that's the first step, and that's huge. And when we talked about these career paths, we are going to see that data analytics is basically kind of like the first step, and then you go into data science. So after you have turned raw data into information, you put it into context. And you do that through the statistical analysis and that predictive modeling, okay? And at that point, it's like when you start comparing the data, you putting into context, you look at the history, you look at the trends, that's the predictive modeling piece. And a statistical analysis, again, is just like you run it through statistics programs just so you can make predictions. At that point, you can turn that data, that information into intelligence, usable intelligence that companies, governments, policymakers can use, okay? So at that point, it's where you have, for example, for retailers, They can say, we are predicting that we are going to sell 1,300 red cars of this particular model next year. Again, that's because we are using that. And these, to do these two pieces, right, actually to do the data analysis and the statistical analysis and the predictive modeling, we use a lot of tools that involve either code or artificial intelligence. So this is where things start getting a little enmeshed one with the other. All right. And last but not least is data governance. And we talked about that. That's important. And these are the people that kind of take care of that data because, you know, there are policies about how this data should be kept, for how long, what can you keep, what you cannot keep, how it should be secured. Again, now we're looking at the cybersecurity part of this, where this interacts or intersects rather with cybersecurity, is how you are going to keep the data safe and just for the right amount and just keep the data that you're allowed or supposed to. So again, that's a lot of policy making, but it has to do with that. So let's go to the next slide. With that, let's talk about some of the job titles, okay? And like I mentioned, the entry-level job for this particular area is going to be your data analyst, okay? That is what is considered your entry-level job, and then you have your data engineers, architects, scientists. These are the people that work in the higher tiers, you know, and then they do that predictive modeling, and they create the algorithms, they create the programs, the data models, etc. And I still put that, you know, because we still have database administrators, DBAs are still around. I've done a little bit of that, but these days it's more enmeshed into the data management area. So it's just a function. So with that said, let's go to the next slide. And in the next slide, we are going to be talking a little bit about salary. So before, like I've done in the past couple of sessions, let's explain these numbers and let's explain these graphics. Again, you see at the bottom right of the graphic, there's a source. So that link, when you click on the presentation, you can click on it, and then you can actually interact with a little bit more. So what you're seeing here, it is the average, and we're going to talk about what that average means for a data analyst, okay? Again, this is your entry level, all right? But you see that the range starts from $30,000 and it goes all the way to 117. So why? Why is such a big disparity? First of all, this is taking into consideration, this is the median salary, okay? So that's $70,000. It is the median salary for all the people, for all the data analysts, entry level and more advanced in the whole of the United States. So it could be that $30,000, honestly, I don't see how or where, but okay, so ZipRecruiter thinks that somebody's getting $30,000 a year to do something data related. It's got to be something like what we used to call data entry. That's the only thing that I can think of. And again, this is all over the United States. So this includes areas that are like high cost of living and low cost of living. So in this particular area, I think that a data analyst that's I think that $75,000 to $80,000 a year is what I will consider the average for an entry-level data analyst. Now, in order to become a data analyst, contrary to what we discussed last week, for example, getting into cyber, which you need to really have a lot of knowledge. On this one, you need to have a specific knowledge about the data science field, maybe a couple of certifications. We're going to talk about that. But the amount of experience and honestly, the knowledge is not as high, I will say, like it's, for example, for some of the careers that we look at last week in networking or cybersecurity, obviously. So I would say that in this area, $70,000 to $80,000 sounds about right to start in this field. As you progress, and especially as we discussed before, as you get into management, this is where the real money is. So a data scientist is definitely doing that $120,000 a year. That's easily, okay? But for that, you probably need a degree. All right, so let's talk about the next slide. Let's talk about how this field is growing. Again, this field, it's one of the fields with the most growth. So, and this is for this particular position only. We're not looking at all the jobs in data. We're just looking specifically as the data analyst, okay? So 11% is growing. And this is just for the data analyst. If you start looking into that link and you start going into like data scientists and data engineers and data architects, those are also growing very much, and those salaries are higher. So as you can see, about 110,000 new jobs for data analysts and reporting analysts are projected over the next decade. And there are currently open about 150,000 job openings here in the United States. So a big need for this particular thing, okay? So people with this particular set of skills. And talking about the skills, let's go to the next slide, because now we are going to talk about those baseline hard or technical skills. I'm going to go back again a little bit. If you're joining us for the first time tonight, we've been talking all these 3 weeks about the need, the importance of these technical skills. And without these, you cannot advance in the field, obviously. But in the same hand, in the next slide, we will talk about the soft skills that are being required for all positions in IT now, okay? So as you can see, the general skills, they are kind of very specific. And as you can see, some of them are knowledge in specific pieces of software, some of them are programming languages, and some of them are stuff like machine learning. So, and then there are other ones that are specific to what the company is using. And you're going to see this when we discuss certifications for this particular area. As we discussed last week about certifications, there are two types of certifications. There are like, vendor neutral and vendor specific. When it comes to data analytics, you cannot do data analytics or data science without specific tools. So you saw that name, Tableau and Power BI. These are two platforms, tools, softwares that are used a lot. Tableau is a company that specializes only on data analytic products, stuff like that, the hardware and software. Power BI is a Microsoft product, okay? So again, and that's how each one of these companies, and there are other ones, by the way. Excel, believe it or not, Excel is still used a lot for that lower level of the data sifting, the data analytics. And then because Excel is actually a pretty powerful tool, and in order to get good at it, you need to really be a power user. And there's a ton of things you can do in Excel. And then the next one is SQL or SQL. That stands for Structured Query Language. And there are different flavors of this. So there are like MySQL, there's like MS SQL, and then there's different flavors. Again, you think, and basically what this is when you're querying a database, this is how you can construct those queries. And most likely you have used this. If any of you have ever done queries in something like Access. Access, it's a database that if you have used SQL, you have built those queries in SQL. So that is very powerful. Python. Python is both a programming and a scripting language. Specifically for cybersecurity and for data analytics, the scripting capabilities of Python is what is very desirable. Python has become lately like kind of like a hot thing. That's the language that everybody's recommending everybody to learn. Python is not a new language. It was created over 25 years ago. Again, originally as a programming language, and it's a decent programming language, but I think that it's like with the newer versions of Python, it has concentrated more in the scripting capabilities. And now, what is scripting? Scripting is creating these little things. And again, maybe you already have created scripts, not in Python, but when you have created those little, executable text files on Windows, that's basically scripting. So in Python, and that's why it is very powerful, because in order to go to a lot of data, which is what you need to do for data analytics and cybersecurity, these scripts are very interesting, very useful. R R also is a language which is specifically used for mathematics and analytics. Again, um, it's actually a proprietary language, if I'm not, no, it's open source, but some applications of R are proprietary. And now, again, going into the AI, because AI is being used a lot, or is being starting to be used a lot in both cyber and especially in data analysis. And this is why, again, you need to understand how to um, talk, how to make those prompts to the AI systems so you can get the results that you're trying to get. By the way, a little bit of a plug. Tomorrow, we have Dr. Phil Feldman. Um, he's going to be our guest speaker for our Future of Tech, that he's going to be talking specifically about that, or how to create effective prompts for AI. If you haven't registered, again, it's a hybrid event. You can attend here in person. Here at the hub, there's still, I think, open seats available. If you happen to join us in person, since this is sponsored by Verizon, the people that come here will get free lunch. If you choose to join us online, obviously you will not get lunch, but you will get Dr. Feldman's presentation. So that's that. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so now let's talk about those baseline soft skills. Again, like I have been talking in the past few weeks, in the past couple of weeks, is that these are becoming actually super, super important. Because long gone are the days where people in information technology never talk to anybody. They sit in a corner in a basement, and they were considered, for the most part, antisocial, grumpy, and not very approachable, not very personable. Well, again, this IT, as we discussed on the first week, is now a business function. It's not a nice thing to have. It's not like an extra department. No, it's a business function. Nothing can function without IT. And because of that, client interaction is important. Not only with clients, but also with colleagues, with superiors, with the general public, etc. And that's why communication, written and verbal communication, is important, is necessary. Organization, again, we talked about these as, usually in the IT field, one of the things that are interesting, or at least I find it interesting, is that sometimes you get 10 different things coming at you at the same time. Some people may not like that, but the idea here is like you need to learn to organize yourself on what you need to address first and how to, to go about this. So I think that's good. Analysis, just as the name implies, you need to be able to take on a problem or something and be able to analyze it, come up with a solution, which is also troubleshooting. Learning and research. I've been saying a lot about this because IT is the type of field that you are never done learning. I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and I still learn every day. And I wish, I'm sorry, I'm really happy, and I hope that I continue learning every day. This is one of the things that attracted me to this field. But with that said, that means that you need to be capable of being able to research and to learn by yourself. Not everything that you will learn in this field, you will learn from school. I have mentioned this before. Everything that I know, probably about 60% I've learned in school. The other 40% is stuff that I have researched myself. I have learned by doing it myself, by playing with it or whatnot. But that's super important. That's the only way that you will acquire certain skills. Last but not least, interpersonal, the capability of being able to communicate with other than words, nonverbal communication. And little, again, look at these baseline soft skills. You're going to see that they are exactly the same skills for every single one of these areas, okay? Because that's across the board. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's make a pause right here, okay? And then if you want to share it, great. Otherwise, it's for your own reflection. But of what we've discussed so far, what has stood out for you about the careers in data? Data science, data analytics, data management, data governance. So what was new or what was interesting? And the other question again for you to ponder is, are you interested in a career in data? Before you answer that question, I've been doing this series for almost 2 years now, and I have met a couple different people. You keep on changing it. This is, believe it or not, for those of you who are looking to switch to a career in IT, this could be a field, believe it or not, that you may have not considered, but it may be the most, probably the easiest one for a lot of people to get into, because let me tell you why. uh, there's a lot of career changers that are very good. They have a lot of knowledge in their specific fields. Let's take an example. Let's say that you are in the medical field. You have a lot of knowledge about the medical field, okay? So maybe your segue, your into IT is by trying to learn these specific skill sets that you will need to get into the data. Why? Because there's a huge need for people in the medical field. Data is one of is the medical field is one of those areas that produce the most amount of data, and the data that needs to be kept, and the requirements are very specific. So what who better than the people that actually works in that field, that has that knowledge about the field? You see, when somebody from IT comes to, like, let's say a hospital or a practice, and they're trying to, they need to know exactly how you're going to use this data. They need those SMEs, those subject matter experts, to consult so they can understand how they're going to build those data structures and how they're going to protect that data, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So again, just I think that is one of those fields. Also, biotechnology is another one of those. Research is another one. So if you're in any of those fields and you're thinking, oh, I would like to get into IT, probably this could be again, I will encourage you that you research this, but this could be actually a good way for you to get into the field. Anything, comments? Good. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so now we are going to start talking about cloud. And like I mentioned, this is one of the other hot areas in IT. Pardon me. Like we discussed in the first session, why cloud? Why cloud? And it is because we're all using cloud now. First of all, let me start. I never liked the term cloud. And just a little bit of an anecdote. You know how the term cloud came to be? For those of you who have been around long enough, like myself, and see those, diagrams, network diagrams, where like you have like all the different components that companies had within their network, and everything that was outside the perimeter, what we used to call the perimeter, still perimeter, but nowadays it's very fuzzy as where the perimeter ends or begins. So anything that was outside those walls, that campus, whatever it was represented by a little cloud. Okay, so this is where the term cloud came to be, and cloud is really a term that encompasses a lot of different things. It's not one thing. Basically, cloud is any type of infrastructure, data, um, services, software that is not being run inside your organization. Okay, like I mentioned before, we all use cloud these days, and some of you don't even know that this is the cloud. So, for example, when you're streaming, I don't know. Well, Pandora is for all people. Well, it's for us, all their fault. But whatever streaming service that you are using, that's basically using the cloud. Why? Because that music is not on your computer, is not on your phone. You are streaming it. Okay. So those things are somewhere else. Okay. They are in like these big data centers, and you're just streaming them through, the internet. And there's also other services, because they're going to suggest what album for you to listen next, or they create these specific radio stations for you based on your, what you play the most, or your playlist. So the same thing with Netflix, the same thing with like even banking these days. So there's a lot of things that are cloud. Other things that we are using cloud is, for example, Office 365 or Google Drive or the Google Docs. All this is cloud, okay? So organizations have switched to the cloud for two different reasons. Number one, as like like I mentioned, everybody needs IT these days. Think about a smaller business, okay? Smaller to medium business. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise, or they don't have just the money to really invest and create their own IT departments. All right. Uh, Small business, mom and pop shops can no longer go with like, my nephew knows how to do this, and no, that's not support, and that's not good IT support. So you really need expertise. Now, can you hire two, three, a network engineer, a system administrator? No, probably not. You need to outsource that to somebody that will do it for you, and will do it cheaper in the sense that you will pay as you go. So that is one of the biggest attractive things about the cloud, that a lot of these things you pay as you go, or you pay for what you consume. When you hire somebody, or when you have to develop infrastructure for your business or organization, it doesn't matter if you use it 10% of the time. You still have to be power 100% of the time, and you need to pay the engineer or the system administrator for the 40 hours a week. So this is one of the things so that's the number one thing. Basically, for the smaller business, is because you don't have the expertise, you outsource it to somebody else that can do it for you. And Microsoft and anybody else will do it for you. That's okay, yes, I will host your website, I will show you how to do that, blah, blah, blah. So all that. The other part is because, again, as I mentioned, the what used to be called the perimeter, or where your organization ended and the rest of the world started, is becoming very, very fuzzy these days. Because again, your perimeter, if one of your employees has a company issued phone and they are in Europe, guess what? Your perimeter is now in Europe. Wherever the farthest point, that's where your perimeter is now ending. Okay. So with that said, it's just it's difficult to keep everybody in-house anymore, even for large organizations. The federal government, with one of the biggest organizations, need cloud, okay? And they have huge contracts with AWS, with with Microsoft, and with all these cloud providers. So cloud, this is the other piece. It's just you need cloud. The other part, as we discussed, is most organizations use more than one cloud provider. Wouldn't it be great that I can have all my cloud services, just Amazon will provide it for them? Yes, that would be nice. Or Microsoft. Well, Microsoft is trying to say, we can give you everything that you need. But when you try to really make it happen, you go like, no, I'm gonna need X, Y, Z. So a lot of organizations have a mix of these. And you will think, they all function under the same principles, that they should be nice to each other and they should talk to each other. They do, but no, they are not really nice. And sometimes it's not easy. So that's why, with all that complication, it is important for people that has the knowledge about this. Let's go to the next slide so we can discuss some of the common functions when it comes to people that work in this field. So let's start with determine. You need to determine the cloud technologies, the organization, whatever your client or your own organization needs. What is that we can keep in-house, and what can we outsource, and how we're going to source it, and what are the considerations? Okay, some of the considerations obviously are going to be cost. That's going to be the main one. This is why cloud has grown so much, because it's big business for the cloud providers, but it's also cost savings for a lot of the organizations. Again, that model of pay as you go, or you pay for what you use, is very good. So you need to determine what are the needs, and how can you fill those needs? What is the best approach to each one of those things? Once you have determined that, I said, okay, we're going to go with AWS for this particular team. Okay, now you need to manage that. you need to manage not only that tenant, that AWS tenant, but because maybe the company also has, most likely, has also presence in Azure or Office 365, all those other things, or Google Cloud. So you need to manage. You need to manage the different things because these are like managing applications that you run in-house. It's basically system administration, but with the caveat that these are not in your premises. They could be anywhere in the world. These data centers could be in Ireland, could be in Texas, or they could be in Virginia. All I can tell you is like sometimes data travels across the world a couple of times over before gets into your device. So now you need to also maintain. You need to maintain the functions on your organization. You need to, as difficult as sometimes is, you need to make it smooth and you need to make it transparent to the user. And this is where I'm going to say that sometimes people that work in IT we're often criticized when things go wrong and people yell at us, but when things are going right, nobody thanks us. Okay, so just letting you know that sometimes, but it's okay. It's okay. You know what you're doing. So that means just maintaining, making sure that everything is working as it's supposed to, that the user has a seamless experience, and it doesn't matter that you have to go or the data has to go to two different loops, but you know how that looks. And then last but not least, you need to ensure that the systems, first of all, they run smoothly, efficiently, and securely, okay? This is again where the cyber starts seeping again, or we start seeing that intersection, okay? Because the fact that now you have data, imagine this for the cybersecurity people. Now you also need to be concerned not only on the data that you have on premises, but also you are managing data that is off premises. Now, with that said, cloud providers, for the most part, are quite secure. When a breach happens in a tenant, is usually not because the platform is being hacked, but the access that that company created to that tenant. The tenant, it's is the little portion of cloud that you rent or lease, whatever. So that's usually what happens. So you need to make sure that the correct protocols, the correct authentication happens. So the people that needs to get into that into those resources is only the people who is supposed to, okay? And everything has to run smoothly. Again, that's that part that we need to make sure that everything runs smoothly and transparent to the users. All right. So these are some of the common functions. Let's look in the next slide at some of the example job titles. Like we said before, architect and engineer in the IT world are exactly like in the civil world. The architects are usually the ones that are paid more than the engineers. Why? And even though the engineers are the ones who make things happen. So the architects are the ones who design these cloud systems. When you're looking at the companies like, okay, we're going to put this in this cloud provider, this here, this here, this here, and then they go like, okay, engineers, now make that happen. Now, like I mentioned before, the architects need to understand the capabilities of all these systems, and B, also the limitations. Like I said before, you cannot have an architect that says, I want you to build me this building, everything is made of glass. It's impossible. Structurally, it's impossible. So that's why, the architect needs to understand how far they can stretch these capabilities before it's not doable. Now, the engineer comes and builds those things. Now, a cloud specialist is usually the people that manage and ensure the different things. And a systems engineer, which is kind of like, again, one of those legacy jobs, a system engineer is when everything we used to run in premises. This is the people that also design those systems, used to put together the servers and run the servers, et cetera, et cetera. It still happens because these systems, even though they're not in your premises, doesn't matter if it's Office 365 or whatever it is, you still need people to administer these systems. And that's going to be your system engineers and your system administrators. Okay. So with that said, the entry-level job for this area is usually considered to be a cloud specialist. Next slide, please. We're going to look at salary. Again, look at this. And this is this graphic, actually, I want to mention something. Look at the distribution, okay? The distribution is heavily on the very entry level, okay? $40,000 in this area, nobody's going to do this for $40,000. $86,000 average, I can see somebody in this area, yes, with a couple of certifications and a little bit of experience. You will be probably making 60 if you're just entering this field, but in a couple of years, you'll definitely could be making that average. And again, look at the high end of this field, $205,000. I believe that. And again, this is yearly, and this is through the whole United States, but that's for a cloud specialist. Now, those cloud architects, those cloud engineers, they make easily, even if it's just the starting 6 figures. That I can tell you that right now. Okay, let's now go to job growth and projection on how this is going to go. So again, this is just for this particular job title, if you wish, or anything associated with it. So system specialist, which is cloud specialist, 10%. I think that is a little, again, because the definitions of how these jobs are caught or defined. But as you can see, it's still growing a lot. And this is just this particular job. So about 83,000 new jobs in the next 10 years. And there are about 130,000 active jobs right now open. So why we cannot just jump on those? Let's look at those skills. Next slide. Just like the last case with the data analytics, you see a lot of very specific skills here. The first that I put there is cloud service platform knowledge. And I talked a little bit about this. While the technology and the concepts on how cloud are made and managed are basically the same, Amazon does things a little bit differently than Microsoft and that Google and Oracle. But basically right now, the big three are the biggest one is AWS, Amazon Web Services, and then it's Azure is now catching up to them a lot. Microsoft, they pretty much smarted up about 10 years ago and went like, oh my gosh, Amazon is eating our lunch, so we need to put everything now on Azure, and that's how they have now grown. So cloud service platform knowledge, what are the differences, what are the similarities, okay? And where one will be preferred over the other for a particular situation. Again, going back database management and SQL, again, that we saw on the previous one, okay? And that SQL, that SQL, and the database management, again, because a lot of the things that we do in the cloud, it has to do with putting data out there, okay? So you need to understand if you're going to put a database in the cloud, how is that you're going to query that, how you're going to connect it to your other applications, etc. Again, we go back to programming languages because a lot of the tools, you have to sometimes build specific little snippets, programs, and scripts that run in the cloud. And as you see, it's the same, more or less the same languages that we talked about for data, Python. On this one, JavaScript and R again. And JavaScript is, again, just it's for scripting. And why JavaScript versus Python? Because when you're looking at the cloud, sometimes you have to use web interfaces. And while you can use Python in web interfaces, JavaScript is still a better way to run under HTML, I think. All right, so knowledge of APIs, application programming interfaces. Again, because these are the, for lack of a better term, the connectors. What connects your system in your organization with the cloud provider. So these are the things that allow these things to talk to each other, okay? And sometimes you need to develop these APIs. all right? So you need to understand, first of all, what they are, how they work, and how you can manage, build them, and etc. DevOps, for those of you who don't know what that is development operations is short for that, and it's a methodology, okay? It's a methodology that it can be used for a lot of different projects, but it's specific, very useful for IT development of projects. So you're gonna see a lot of that, what DevOps are, in job postings, because again, a lot of organizations use this methodology uh, to complete projects, especially when they're trying to put something in the cloud, etc. This is going back to when we were talking about networking and cybersecurity, knowledge of Linux systems. Again, a lot of the stuff that we're putting in the clouds are going to be servers, okay? And those servers, again, run on Linux, or to build the base is Linux. And last but not least, as I mentioned before, those security concepts, because you still need to make sure that those connections, the access, and those tenants are secured properly. Let's go to the soft skills. As you saw, exactly the same ones that we talked again before, and we've been talking for every single area. They repeat, repeat, and repeat, because they are across the board what are needed. Okay, so just like we did last time, if you want to share, great. Otherwise, let's just think about what we covered about the cloud technologies and the jobs in cloud. What stood out for you? What is something that you learned, or maybe you know, wow, I didn't know that. And are you interested in a career in cloud technologies? Again, I think it's a growing field. The other thing that is attractive about this one is that, and again, cybersecurity is my thing. I love it, and I went into that. But the contrast between cloud and data and cyber is that the amount of things that you need to learn are not as much as what you will need to get into cybersecurity proper. And the reason I mentioned this before, I said, how can you be a good protector if you don't know what you're protecting? There's a ton of things to know in IT. You don't need to know every single thing. Nobody knows every single thing. I'm telling you that right now. That's why we have specialties, specializations. A good example that I can give you is I have a couple of good friends that are developers, and they're really good developers. They're my knowledge in coding is like this much compared to what they know, and they're really good at that. But when it comes to doing things like support, I had to go and help one of them to install the router at their home. So again, there's so much to know in this field. Sorry, that that is why sometimes trying to get into cyber is a little bit more complicated, because you need to understand everything, because you need to secure everything. That is the problem. On these particular areas, you can pretty much get the knowledge that you need. It's a little less onerous, for lack of a better term. So with those two caveats, okay. So let's go to the next. I think that we're gonna go for a break now. And I think, you know what? If anybody has a question, this is the time to do it. Otherwise, we're just gonna continue if everybody's okay with that. Everybody good? Everybody good? Okay. All right. So let's continue then. Let's go. Let's continue going. Let's talk about web and app development. Okay. And again, like I mentioned in the first time, why did I put these two together? In reality, they're two different things. Web development and app development are two different areas, but the skill sets are very, very similar. The processes are very, very similar. And also, even the job titles are quite similar. So I kind of put them together. And, honestly, we can also add another one. We can do web app / game development, because they all operate pretty much the same, and the skill set is kind of similar. All right? It's a little, okay. So let's go with that. Common functions. Again, doesn't matter if you're doing a website or if you're trying to do an application or even a game, you need to meet with clients to discuss the needs. What are we trying to create here, okay? So what is that website? What is your idea of what the website the application will do, what the game, what is the objective. So let's talk about what is your idea, how, and then you go about, okay, how can we accomplish this if we can accomplish it? Okay, so the feasibility. So that's the one thing, and this is where your obviously your soft skills will become more important than your technical skills, or actually is a mix of both, because as you talk to your clients, they are starting to tell you what they want, and you start already thinking, how am I going to do it? Then modify or write software programs, create websites. So let's start with the third one, actually, because that comes first. Design and create applications, systems, or websites. Again, after you talk to the client or after you said, okay, this is what we're going to do, then you need to start that process of designing it, okay? And by the way, again, another plug in, next month here at the Hub, we are going to have, I think this is almost sold out, if it's not sold out already, but we are going to have a free bootcamp, 8-hour, 4 days bootcamp for app design, intro to app design. Because it is important to understand the process of how you come up with the idea and how you create that prototype for the idea before you actually create the actual product, okay? So there are two different sides of the same equation, but they apply also for websites, okay? So how is the website gonna look like? The navigation. So this page or this link is gonna concatenate to this, and how do I go back to home? So you have to think about these things, all right? And then you write the programs, you create the website, you code it, okay? So that's the coding piece. And as you're gonna see, obviously coding is a big part of this area, okay? After that has been done, maybe you need to modify it, either to make it better or to make the newer version, or because you were hired to improve a program, a website, a system, whatever it is. And obviously write the programming code, which is within all that, okay? So let's go to the next slide. And again, you're going to see programmer, coder, and developer. Okay, I want to make sure that sometimes people use coder or programmer or developer interchangeably, and they're not. They're not the same. Okay, why the developer makes more money than the programmer? Because the developer is the person who actually, if we go back to the other slide, is the person that is involved in the creation, in sometimes even in the design of things, and then makes sure that the project gets done. They may or may not code the program themselves. They could, parts of it, or maybe the engineers, the coders will do that for them. But the developer is the person that oversees the whole project, and that's why they make more money, okay? Also, I wanted to mention that the web developer and software developer, again, they are very similar. The difference is like when you're doing web development, usually there's two sides to this. Whether with the software development, is usually you design and then you create a prototype and then you actually create the application and then you test it, et cetera, et cetera. With web development, there are two areas of it. One is going to be the front end, which is the actual website or the web interface, okay? And some people specializes only on that. And there is the back end, you know, what needs to happen when that web interface communicates with those servers on the other end, either be to do a payment, either to whatever it is, you know. Let's just think about your banking, you know, when you're interacting either on your phone, on the app, or on the website, things are happening, things are being updated in a database, you know, you are moving money from one place to another. It's in reality, it's just moving a quantity from one table to another table, but so how that happens, and that is the back end, okay? So there are people that only specializes in the front end, some people that specializes only on the back end, but the people who do both sides, usually what is called a full stack developer, okay, if you have ever heard that term. So coder, again, could be somebody that just does with the code. They said, okay, write me a specific code for this. These are the people that build the Lego pieces, okay? The developer is the one that thinks about the whole picture, and then you know how that's going to look like. Computer programmer, coder, kind of like the same thing. But those are some of the jobs. Let's go to the next slide. And okay, on this one, I picked the app developer as there is not really an entry-level job, but it's a coder will be, or a programmer will be, a lower level programmer will be considered an entry-level job. But when we're talking about developers, this is you know, the marquee job. Doesn't matter if you're a web or app developer. And that $110,000 in this area sounds about right for somebody that is actually starting or has a little bit of experience, okay? What that means? That means that these people already has experience in coding, so they have already done coding, either because they have worked in other projects or they have worked on their own projects, they have their own portfolio, they have their own stuff running on GitHub or whatever, okay? But that's when you're starting. In reality, this job, as you become better and you take on bigger projects, that's where your salary is going to go up. And I think that with a solid experience, you can easily make $150,000 plus being an app developer or web developer. Let's go to the next slide. Let's look at the job projection for this. 21%. That's pretty healthy. Why is that? Let's think about, and let's talk about where do you think that growth is? Where do you think that most applications are being designed for? Is it for computers, servers, or mobile devices? And it's going to be for mobile devices. Everybody has at least one phone. I have two right here. One, a personal, and the work phone. So everybody. Every kid has a phone. Everybody has a phone. So with that, have you looked at how many applications are in the App Store or in the Android, you know, the store? So this is, a lot of people are developing mobile applications. This is huge. A lot of people are starting doing that. So that growth is right there. By the way, again, the workshop that we're doing, the bootcamp rather, that we're doing next month is actually intro to how to design an application, a mobile application. So about 284,000 jobs are projected over the next decade, okay? I had the opportunity, and again, this is not an endorsement of Apple. Apple is one of the partners here at the Hub, but I had the opportunity to go to the Apple Learning Academy at the beginning of this year in Texas, in Austin. And I knew, everybody knows that Apple is a huge company, but we were able to tour the Apple campus in Austin. And it's huge, and they're building more. And they said that they're going to build more campuses. One here in North Carolina in the next couple of years, there's going to be even bigger. And I'm like, why? How much people you need? And in reality, is because Apple is a huge company, and is, again, no, nothing pro or against Apple, but that to me is the illustration of these numbers. There are 280,000 active job applications in the US. Sounds about right. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, hard technical skills. No surprise here, a lot of programming, okay? And this is just kind of a sample, okay? And these are some of the programming languages that are like right now very popular. Everybody has heard about C, you know, Java, Swift, which is the language that now Apple uses to, you want to develop for Apple, it's going to be in Swift. Doesn't matter for which one of their platforms or their OSs. Python, we have discussed why Python. And and then there are honestly hundreds of languages. This is just, and then I can go down the list. You know, I mean, there are some proprietary languages. MATLAB, for example, is a proprietary language. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to use MATLAB, the application, but to program that you need to know MATLAB, which is a proprietary language. And then we talked about R and some of the other languages which are, still being used, Ruby, and even because of legacy applications, some very old programming languages like COBOL and Fortran. There are still systems out there, especially in the government, that run on those things. And you don't find a lot of people that knows those. I don't. So UI design, again, that is the part for when you're designing either a website or an application. And we talked a little bit about this in our bootcamp. Why is this important? Because this is how your users are going to be interacting with the application. So there's a lot of considerations going into that. First of all, you want to be inclusive. You want to make sure that the most people are able to use and like to use your application. So you have to look at the design, the colors, the placement, so everybody can use it. We talked about back-end computing, which is, that back-end for both, especially on the web development side. Cross-platform development. Again, because you are developing something that needs to run into, let's say, Windows and Mac OS and maybe Linux. And what about now for the mobile devices? Maybe Android, iOS, etc. Product and business management. This is where, especially for the development side, and this is something that I saw when we are doing our app design bootcamp. People have great ideas. I'm going to tell you, every one of you has a great idea. I have no doubt about that. But this is the next question about that. How profitable that idea will be. How many people will use your application? Maybe you're passionate about something. You're very passionate, and there's an actual need for that. I've had somebody say, oh, I would like to create this application because me and a group of friends, we really are passionate about this particular thing. And then we will always want it for somebody to create that application and nobody does it. Why nobody has done it? Because probably they're going to sell 200 copies of that. It's not worth their time. So again, so that's where the product development and business management comes into, because having great ideas, it's great, but at the end of the day, is how either profitable or how popular they will be. Okay, that's why there are hundreds of thousands of applications at the App Store. I'm sure that some of them says 3+ million, 5+ million, right? But I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a couple that says 25 downloads. Okay, so maybe it's a passion project. It's okay. You're not trying to make money. That is fine. But if you're trying to actually make money, then you need to try to think of something that it will be more popular across the board. Okay, there's need for niche applications. There's need for all that. But again, as long as it makes business sense. Agile development, just like we talked about DevOps, that is another methodology. And as the name suggests, Agile is a way that you can cut the, usually, especially with software development, for those of you who are familiar with the SDLC, or the software development life cycle, it's very linear, okay? So the thing about Agile is that you can be doing a couple of things in parallel, so the time gets shortened. And this was born out of need. Let me tell you, for those of you who are gamers, I am not, but I have friends who are very passionate about this stuff. You expect every year a new version of your game that it has more characters, more worlds, or whatever it is. It's better in a lot of different ways. 1 year is a very short time to develop something like that. And that is not only applies to games, it applies to a lot of different things. People really want something better, faster, nicer, and I don't want it in 3 years down the road. I want it like, okay, I'll give you 6 months, I'll give you a year, but I want something, otherwise I'm moving on to something else. So that's what Agile was born, and is being very, is a skill that a lot of people is asking for. And last but not least, again, this one is an oldie but a goodie, testing and troubleshooting. like I when we are doing our boot camp here for coding, or we do our coding demos, one thing that I tell the participants is like, if you're a developer, you're going to spend most of your time not coding, but fixing errors. That is a given. So testing, troubleshooting. Okay, so the idea is great. Now you start writing it, and then something goes wrong. Where did it go wrong? How can I improve the process? So that is huge in this part. And you will be successful if you don't have those two, or you continue developing those two skill sets. Let's go to the next one, which is going to be, oh, I'm sorry, we do. So I did have two different slides for this. The other one was for like app development. This looks like that is for web development. And again, this is where it departs. You know, is the technical skills where it departs, but the functions are the same. So on this one, as you can see, for front-end coding, you need specific knowledge of specific languages. So HTML, you know, CSS, JavaScript, you know, uh, for the back end, you will need Java, Python, PHP. I think that there's still also sometimes you use C, definitely. And if not C, Objective C. Um, Again, from the other one, user interface and user experience design. Okay. Again, this one actually has the user experience because it's different to be interacting with something in a small device than in a larger device, especially a website. The interaction is different. In a small device, first of all, you are touching, and then the real estate is small. Here, when you have a bigger space and a different way to interact, which is keyboard and mouse, you need to test it in a different way. Security and data protection. That's is important on the other one as well. And I should have mentioned that because this is how 20 years, not even 20 years ago, even up until like I can say 10, 15 years ago, people used to write applications first, and then somebody came and said, how can we secure it? That's no longer the case. Now you need to have that security knowledge, because as you are writing the application, security is built in. When you're building a system, an application, a website, you need to start thinking about the secure part of it from the inception. You don't secure after the fact. Now you have to secure as you build, as you develop, okay? And again, testing and troubleshooting, the same thing, okay? Let's go to the next slide, please. And again, we go back to the same thing with the softline skills, the soft skills. Very important here, and more important probably than into any of the fields that we have discussed here is the communication. For a developer, for somebody that needs to have that constant interaction with the client, with the customer, with the user, you need to really have that capacity of being able to listen, to hear, to analyze feedback. Okay. So yeah, that's important. Let's go to the next slide. We're doing good time here. Again, what was covered in this section, what stood out for you, is this something that you're interested? Now, one thing that I'm going to say is I believe I mentioned this on the first session, and I mentioned that anybody that goes into IT, regardless of which of these fields you choose or it's your interest, you will need to have foundational, and I say foundational knowledge in some of these things. And I mentioned hardware, software, I mentioned networking, and I mentioned also security concepts is important. So those four, but now I am also including coding. Why I'm including coding? You don't need to be a coder or a developer, but you need to understand, as you've seen, a lot of the things that we do, that we're interacting with these things, is basically giving instructions or commands to programs, okay? Especially as we get into this AI world, we need to be able to prompt, to program these AIs correctly, to ask them the correct questions. Just like when we were talking about SQL and the databases, if you don't create the correct query, you will not get the results that you wanted. Same thing with AI. And as you see, these other two areas that are really coming big use a lot of coding, which is, data analytics specifically, cybersecurity, and cloud. They all use that. So I'm going to add that you need to have an understanding of coding. And why is that? Okay, I'm not going to be a developer. That's fine. But what you learn when you have foundational knowledge of coding is how to talk to a computer, which is one of the things that I demonstrate really when we're doing these coding boot camps. Is like, we as humans think, or from a very early age, we are accustomed in thinking in very complex things. If I ask somebody, please open the door, you know exactly what I mean. I don't need to tell you, face the door, walk 25 steps, grab the handle, turn the handle, pull the door. I don't need to tell you that, but I need to tell a computer that. So this is why the coding piece is important. You need to know how to talk to computers to get the best results. All right? Kidoki. All right, let's talk about certifications. Because we're gonna do a little rehash here for our friends that are joining us today. We talked about this on the last two sessions, but degrees versus certifications. So next slide, please. And again, IT is a industry that is dominant the certifications. Okay, most a lot of people you can get for most of the careers that we have talked about without a degree, an entry-level job. But eventually, at some point, a degree will help you either to grow or to go into management. Okay. But certifications are usually required or preferred in a lot of job postings, okay? And then what is the big difference between a degree and a certification? That a degree is usually, it's a breadth of knowledge, okay? So basically, doesn't matter if you do an associate's or a bachelor's. Well, as you go up post-grad, then it becomes a little bit more narrow. But they try to give you a little bit of everything. So that's why they make you take classes in English, in math, social studies, and a couple of electives as along your core classes or whatever your specialty is. So they want you to be a rounded professional, somebody that can operate in a professional environment, and then can write a good email and have good analytic capabilities and make decisions considering all aspects. Certifications, on the other end, they don't care much about any of that. Is more narrow, is a narrower path. It's like we're trying to teach a specific skill or a specific set of knowledge, okay? And this is why a lot of job postings require the Holy Trinity: degree, certifications, and experience, and how you get all three. So we've talked about that. That's another conversation. But yes, there's ways that you can work towards that. All right, next slide. The other piece that we talked about, and let's go to the next slide. I believe is in the next slide. Yes, this is what it is. So we talked about IT certifications being required or preferred on job postings. Second, we already talked about this. Certifications can be either vendor neutral or vendor specific. Vendor neutral are those who teach you about a specific area of IT, for example, networking, Network Plus, the CompTIA certification. What it says is like, okay, so you have enough knowledge of networks, computer networks, or A Plus says you have enough knowledge of hardware and operating systems, etc. So those are vendor neutral, but then there's the vendor specifics, and there's your AWS specifically for Amazon Web Services, or your Microsofts, or the ones that we're going to see, Tableau and those specific ones, and even Python has a lot of certifications. So that's it. But how do you get a certification? And we're going to go through that again a little bit, like we did last week. So first of all, for most certifications, you just need to pass an exam. That's it. You pass the exam, and there's a couple of ways to prepare for that exam. We're going to touch on those a little bit. But what happens after the exam? So, okay, so you pass the exam, or let's say you don't pass the exam, you can try it again. Usually you have to wait a couple of weeks, and you have to pay a fee again. There's a fee to take the exam. And if you fail it, usually you can, when you retake it, there's a discount, but you have to pay again most of the time. So, okay, now you're certified. Excellent, great. Most certifications are not going to require any prerequisites or that you have job experience. The exception are some higher end certifications, like we talked about CISSP last week. On that one, you have to, first of all, prove that you have 5 years of paid experience in 3 of the 9 domains of security, according to um, the organization that does CISSP. Um, Also, you need a sponsor, but that's the exception. That's not the rule. For the most part, you just need to pass exam. Once you pass the exam, now, yeah, you're certified, and you're usually certified for 3 years. So during those 3 years, you can do a couple of things, or rather, during those 3 years, you can gather what they're called CEUs or CPEs, whatever they're called them, is basically credits. And you get these by attending conferences, by watching webinars, by taking a class, by teaching a class. There's a lot of different ways that you can get those. So if you get certain number of these at the 3 years, you will be recertified. If you don't have these, you can retake the exam after 3 years, with the caveat that these exams usually change every 2 years. So, all right. On top of that, you will have to pay a yearly fee to maintain that certification. Depending on the certification, that could be as little as $75. It could be as much as a couple of $100s. What you get for that, you get to keep your certification. You also get access to some resources, so you can get your CEUs or CPEs. You get some couple of benefits, depending on the organization. All right. So but how do you actually get to the exam? Because we didn't talk about that part. So for a lot of people, if you think you're ready, you have the knowledge, you go to the website and you go, okay, I think I can do this, you can go ahead and take the exam. Unless you're quite sure, I don't recommend it, obviously. But it may work for some people. Now, if you don't have the knowledge and you want to acquire the knowledge so you can take the exam, there's a couple of things that you can do. Either A, you can try to learn it yourself. Again, unless you're very organized and already have some experience, I do not recommend it, because you can become overwhelmed and there will be a lot of things that you don't understand what it means, or it will not make sense, okay, in the big context. But it's a path. The other 2 paths are going to be that you take a preparation course, and there's a couple of different flavors for those. You can go, there's a lot of institutes out there, that offer these things, and I don't have nothing against them. Actually, some of them it may be what it works for a lot of people, but the thing with this is like, they're usually for profit, and they're just trying to get people to take their courses. Their courses are usually a couple $1,000 and run 6 weeks or something to that effect. A lot of people have complained that they didn't learn enough, or they didn't feel that they got their money's worth, but some people like it. It's fine. It's a path. The other path will be that you go to your local community college. Most community colleges have, the workforce development, the non-credit classes, and we're going to talk a little bit about what is offered here at Montgomery College as far as that. Why I recommend those? Those are usually cheaper. We're talking hundreds of dollars versus thousands. Also, for most people, this will not work for everybody, but for most people, especially if you're trying to gain that knowledge, these are a little bit more stretched out. So it's usually 12, 16 weeks. So you get to digest, ask, the content a little bit more. All right. There's the third path. The third path is going to what they're called these boot camps. And those boot camps, I only recommend it for people that already has a pretty good knowledge about the area, but they just want to gain specific knowledge about that certification or what the exam is going to include. These are very expensive usually. The good part is, like, sometimes the cost includes the voucher for the exam, but usually they're running in the thousands of dollars as well. And they are usually 4 to 5 days, full days, but they cram all that knowledge in 40 hours. So it's like 100 miles an hour. If you're prepared for that, I've done it. It works. So again, but your case, you need to understand which is your case and which one makes more sense to you. All right? That's that. Let's go to the next slide, please, because we're going to talk specifically about certifications for each one of these paths. So we start with the CompTIA. Again, we talked about CompTIA last week, and CompTIA is a nonprofit, and it's a respected, and their certifications are respected throughout the industry. They are non-vendor specific. So the Data Plus, that is considered the entry-level certification for data. Why? Because again, that covers how data is done, the data models, and the different ways that data can be stored, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go into the specific ones. We talked, remember when we were talking about the hard skills for data, we talk about Power BI. Okay, so that's there's certifications called Power BI Data Analyst Associate. There's actually a couple, Power BI, but this is, again, these are intro. All of these are intro. And this is issued by Microsoft. Then you have the Tableau Certified Data Analyst. Tableau is a Canadian company, again, very big in the data analytics field. Is issued by Tableau. And even though this is cloud, but this is the AWS Data Analytics, because again, as you saw, data and cloud are kind of related, because a lot of people are using the cloud to store their data or to analyze and work with their data in the cloud rather than in their premises, okay? So this is the AWS Data Analytics. So AWS, the platform, does have some built-in tools, and this is what their certification is about. Now, when we go to the next one, which is, I think, is going to be the cloud. As you can see, it's all AWS. Again, there are other certifications. Azure has their certifications. Google Cloud now is starting to have their own certifications. But still, the biggest play in the industry is AWS. And a lot of these certifications is what we're seeing in a lot of the job postings. And then as you can see, there's a ton of, and this is only 4. They have a lot more. I think that they have something like 20 different certifications. But the cloud practitioner, that is considered the entry level for AWS. And the AWS, the Certified Solutions Architect, that is like the mid-level, and then you go up from there. So certified developers, certified SysOps administrators, those are the advanced ones. But they do have other ones as well, including security. Let's go to the next slide. So for software and web development, in reality, in this area, certifications matter not as much as in the other areas. There are some. And what this will prove is that you have knowledge in this particular language. And as you can see, there's 2 for Python, and then there's also 1 for AWS Certified Developer. Because again, when you are trying to manage and all these things, you have to use AWS tools. But the Python has 2 different ones, and those are good ones just to prove that you have knowledge of the language. Now, for developers, especially when it comes for app developers. So these certifications, the Python ones, will be good to have if you are trying to get into the data or the cybersecurity field. Because what you're saying is like, on top of that, I also know Python, okay? But for developers, in reality, the best way that they can prove their skills is by having a portfolio, is by showing this is what I have created, okay? But these are, we're talking certifications, so this is what we have for certifications. All right, next. So we're gonna talk now about a couple of different resources here. Do we have Chris online? Okay, well, we are waiting for, hopefully he'll be able to join us. We are a little ahead, but so Information Technology Institute, this is, as I was saying, here at Montgomery College and most community colleges, you don't have to come here. But if you're in the area, this is what is convenient for you. We have 4 different locations, actually, and we have a couple of other satellite locations for non-credit classes. So this is some of the courses. The Information Technology Institute, or ITI, is our sister organization within, here at the college. And in the next slide, it will show you some of the courses that we offer. And again, some of them are intro. You're just trying to get that um, that knowledge, that foundational knowledge. And then there are some specific, as you can see, there are some Power BI, there are some for networking. So we have something for data analytics, cyber, web and mobile design, programming. We don't offer them all the time. So you will need to check our, when the courses are going to be offered. We offer them usually in the fall and spring semesters and in different locations. Some of them are online, some of them are hybrid, most of them are in person. But again, as you can see, there's a little bit of everything, including applications and stuff. So that's one way that you can gain knowledge if that's skills that you will need or preparation for particular certifications. All right, so next slide. I think that we're gonna end a little early tonight. The Ignite Hub, this is another resource for you. You are here, you are attending this training because you already know us, you already obviously, I'm sorry, register for this event. But do check other events that we have. Like I said, I mentioned that boot camp, or boot camps rather, that we're gonna have next week and next month. And our guest speaker series, again, Dr. Feldman tomorrow is gonna be talking about how to do proper prompting for different LLMs, how to get the best results. So we have also our other career series as in the evenings, our fireside chat, we have guest speakers that come to talk to us about how they got to where they are and give some advice on people that is aspiring, people that is trying to get into those fields, etc. So they come about talk about their careers. The future of tech, that's usually a little bit more of technical topic, as you can hear from what we have tomorrow. And we have these IT career pathways, which is another one. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, these series were very well received this time around. And I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that, people is trying to look for different jobs or trying to get into the area. But our director has asked me if we can do another one in about a month or so. And I believe that's going to happen. So stay tuned. And if you want to come again, by all means. If not, please recommend it to friends or family, whoever you think that he will be interested in attending these sessions, either in person or virtually. So that's us. Let's go to the next slide. This is, and so Chris is not here yet. All right. Well, so this is some of the services that we provide here. And again, I talk about the fireside and future of tech, career guest speaker series, the coding bootcamps, IT career pathways. The next one that I want to talk about with you is the career workshops and career coaching. And that's in the next slide. And I was hoping that Chris Stephens was going to join us. I invited him, but it's my fault because I invited him at 7:45 and we're a little early. So, but let's go to the next slide. I'll tell you about it. So the Ignite Hub has partnered with Career Catchers, which is a nonprofit that is based here in the area, and they've been doing this for like 20 years. So what they do, and Chris is our career coach, what they do for us is like, and again, this is completely free and open to everybody with a caveat, which I will speak in a second. We do those monthly career workshops. And again, you can register to those. You can attend to them in person. This season, we're having them at our EC at the East County Education Center, or you can join online. And these monthly career workshops are designed for any job seeker. So last month we had resume writing. I think that this month we're gonna do transferable skills. And then, so these is our workshops, so how you can prepare yourself for, to a career search. Also, we're gonna have a couple of very good topics in the summer. I believe we're gonna switch it up a little bit, and I think that we're gonna talk a little bit more about like interview preparation and that kind of situations, okay? So those are the number one. The other thing that we offer, and again, those are open and free for anybody and everybody. So just go to our website, register for them in person or online. The other thing that we offer, and this is the one that has the small caveat, is that we offer one-to-one career coaching. And Chris Stephens, our career coach, if you contact them, this is free for anybody, for any Montgomery County resident that is looking to get into the IT career field, okay? This is the one that has a little bit of a caveat. So if you qualify, if you pass those two qualifiers, you're looking for a career in IT and you are Montgomery County, you live in Montgomery County, you can make an appointment and you can have several sessions with him. So basically career coaching that will give it to you. They will, and they will work a little bit of everything. First of all, they will like, say, here, what are you trying to do? Where are you? What skills do you need? And how can you feel those skills? And then trying to also try to see if there's employers, anything like that. So career coaching is super useful and it's completely free. If you can schedule an appointment, there's a QR code included in there. Again, my apologies. I think I went a little too fast, and otherwise Chris was going to join us tonight. But he'll be more than happy to talk to you. He is a great career coach. We've been working with him for a couple of years and their organization, so highly recommended. And again, it's free. Next slide, please. So we're wrapping up, and we ended up a little early tonight. So I'm going to give you back some of your time. But what was covered in this presentation, what stood out for you the most? This whole presentation, okay? And then this is where I really, really want you to take a moment and reflect on this, because you need to commit to do something, okay? Doesn't matter how big or how small, but what actions will you take after attending this presentation? So the action could be, I'm going to learn a little bit more about data. I am thinking that I'm going to look into this particular certification. I am going to just check out ITI's catalog, or maybe I'm going to check this institute, you know, whatever it is, or whatever your action, or your action could be, I'm going to try to, you know, see if this career coaching, I'm going to try this career coaching thing. So that is pretty much what I have for you. And after this, we're going to open the floor for questions. I believe that that's the next slide. Yes, so that's my information again, and everybody is going to get a copy of this presentation. And if you have any questions, comments, please. So questions, do we have any questions that from our friends online or friends here in the audience? Go ahead.
We have one question. It says, do you help with the certification voucher?
No, but we have, so the hub itself, no, we do not. But there is a program, well, it's a program that our sister organization, ITI, is running. It's a federal grant. So take that. I don't know with the situation as it is, a lot of grants are being cut, as you know. We are hoping that it gets renewed, but that's something that you can, I don't know, Anthony, if you can find the tech map. I think Anthony is looking for the tech map link, and he will post it on the chat. So TechMap is a grant from the Department of Labor that is being run by ITI. And if you are accepted, you need to apply for the program. There's a couple of prerequisites. I believe that you have to be a legal resident, and well, you have to read it. But if you qualify and you apply for it, they do have, it's a combination of both career coaching and instruction, and they will basically will pay you, will give you the voucher. I think that they're offering right now Network Plus and Security Plus. So if you're interested in either one of those two, I would recommend that you check TechMap. But there are other resources as well. So find out again through career coaching session with Chris. Maybe he'll be able to recommend you to some other stuff. But TechMap is one of those programs that I know for a fact that we are running here at the college, and I hope that we continue running. But I'm sure that there are other programs as well that can help you with that. If I may ask, what certification are you interested in? That's for the person who asked that question, if they want to share. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Oh, Chris is here? Oh, great, great. So All right. Yes. Please, please. Chris Stephen. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good evening. How are you?
All right. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Chris Stephens. I already told them a little bit about what you do, but please uh, let us know in your own words some of the stuff that the Career Cultures is doing with the Ignite Hub. Thank you, Chris.
Of course. Thank you so much. So I recognize a few familiar names on the line, but so my name is Chris Stevens. I'm a career coach. I work for a nonprofit organization called Career Catchers here in Montgomery County, and we are partnered with the Ignite Hub to do a couple things. One is doing monthly career skills workshops. You can find those on the website, and hope that you can attend. They're what is it, the second Tuesday of every month?
Yes.
But I also provide one-on-one career coaching. So if you're thinking about, trying to start a career in the IT field, or maybe you're already in the IT field and trying to advance, or maybe switch careers, that's where I can help. So it really is a personalized approach. We can talk about resumes, assist with job applications, identify appropriate job opportunities, help with interview prep, all that kind of good stuff. But it goes a little more than that, right? We do focus on sort of the career aspect. So, we will talk about goal setting and career planning and all that as well. And of course, if you're, not sure where to start, or, looking for a specific certification, we can try to figure out how best to make that happen and get you the training you need. So if you're interested, you can, find my information on the website. I see there is a question in chat saying there's no availability to set up a session through the website. So that's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and put my email in the my direct email in the chat here. And if you're interested in setting up a meeting, please feel free to shoot me an email, and we can schedule something in the next week or so. I'm able to meet both in person and virtually, depending on your preference. So we can be pretty flexible. You do have to be a resident of Montgomery County. I do want to clarify. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you're interested.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, basically, I kind of told him that, but you expanded very much. So it's great, as you can see, and this is a service that is being provided to you for free. So if you have those two requisites, that you live in Montgomery County and you are looking for a career in IT, Chris, will definitely will talk to you. Also, he may have resources as far as like some organizations or some programs that may help with like vouchers or preparation for certifications. I was just telling them a little bit about TechMap being one of them, but there are other opportunities out there as well. So yeah, so if you want to continue, and again, that could be what your to do, what your next step after this presentation is. And Chris, by the way, I was just telling our audience too that Kimberly has asked me to do this series again next month. Looks like they're being very popular. So probably I'm going to ask you to join us one more time. But yes, so yes, so please do tell everybody that if you enjoy this and you think that anybody else that can benefit from this, let us know. And again, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And yes, everybody, please contact Chris and see how we can help you with getting you into that career in IT. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So we have any other questions?
We can answer that question.
Oh, yes, please. Sir.
He says, I have 24 years in the IT field and I am interested in getting the CISSP certification, but I am not sure if I have 5 years of cybersecurity experience. Can I still take the exam?
Yes, so very good question. Okay, couple of things. First of all, when I talked about, so according to the organization that does the CISSP certification, and CISSP stands for Certified Information Security Professional. I think I'm missing one of them. But anywho, ISC Square, the organization that provides this, has in their world, they think that there are 9 domains, or that, at least when I took the exam, there were 9 domains into how to secure things. And those domains are vary from like physical security to application security to controls and policies, etc. So When I say that you need to prove that you have had 5 years of paid experience in at least 3 of those areas, you really need to think about everything that you've done. So again, when I got my CISSP, I didn't really have any experience per se, 100% in cybersecurity, but having worked also 2 decades in the IT field, I did a lot of support, a lot of system administration. So a lot of the functions that I did during those jobs, applied because as part of support, for example, I had to install, antivirus, software, assist with investigations, make sure that we secure the equipment physically and stuff like that. So you need to think about, look at the functions of each one of these areas and cross them and say, I have this, I have this, I have this. Now, with that said, one thing that I can tell you from personal experience is like, once you pass the exam, and I want to talk a little bit about that exam, and that kind of goes with a lot of these exams for these certifications. Um, they are now doing what they are called dynamic testing. So at the beginning, they throw you the first 40 questions or so. They throw you 5, 6 questions of each one of these areas. And if they see that you got 2 or 3 wrong in a particular area, guess what? They're going to start throwing you more questions in that particular area. So with that said, and a lot of the questions also, sometimes they ask you the same question twice with a different wording. Make sure that you do read these questions because you read it twice before you answer, okay? I know that you have that clock that is like that ominous clock that is like ticking down, tack, tack, tack. But you have to take your time and read these questions so you can provide the correct answer. One of the things that I found out in the CISSP test is, unfortunately, that is a multiple choice for the most part. They also give you some scenarios. But what it was funny is like all 4 answers were correct in one way or another. So you had to pick which was the best answer. And that sometimes is not that easy. I don't want to discourage anybody. I just think that everybody should go really with their eyes open as far as like when they're going to take an exam as like what to expect. Now, if you fail the exam, and I'm not saying that you will, but the CISSP in particular is a high failure rate for those who take it the first time. I think that like 70% of people fail it the first time, by the way. Some certifications are better than others. And then there's ways that before you take the exam that you can take practice exams to see how ready you are. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, just I want people to understand what they do. When you pass the exam, they will, at that point, they will ask you that you need to prove that. And then you will have to provide some documents from HR or from your work history documenting what you have done. It's a little nerve-wracking, but and then they're going to ask you for a sponsor. And the way that it works with the sponsor is if you know somebody that has a CISSP, you contact them and you said, I know so-and-so, then you provide them their information. That person, the CISSP, will receive an email saying, hey, do you know Joe or Susie? I'm going to say yes. And it's going to say, okay, how long do you know them? Yeah, and there's choices. You can be 1 year or less. So if I've known you one day, I can say I know you because I know you 1 year or less. And the other piece will be, there's a couple of other questions asking about from what I know, if they have any objection from them getting the CISSP certification. After you pass those 2 things, you will get officially certified. Now, let's say that for whatever reason, you do not have the 5 years of experience or the sponsor. I think that the experience is the hardest part. Sponsor, there's a ton of people that will be willing to sponsor you, me included, because I know you for less than 1 year. If for whatever reason you cannot prove that, you will still get the certification, but you will be associate, meaning that you're out in the parking lot and you will have to wait until you can prove that you have those 5 years of experience. After you can prove that, now you are welcome inside the building. But that one is an example of a hard certification to get. Most certifications are actually not that difficult and they are not that expensive. Now, there are exams that are actually more expensive than the CISSP. A lot of those GIAC certifications are over $1,000. So as we spoke about last week, I think that when you're considering a certification, you need to, regardless of what certification it is, two things that you need to consider. First of all, is like how this certification fits into the overall profile. And I'm getting into what Chris will probably recommend you, is how this fits into the profile, into the person that I'm trying to present to employers. Okay, is how valuable that is going to, or how that's going to complement the other things that I have. How is that going to complement my experience, my other my degree, or my other certification? So first of all, you need to understand. Don't just get it just to show I got it. No, it has to tell a story. All right. The second part that you need to consider when getting any certification is what is the return on investment that I'm going to get on this. Okay, this is why I included the facts that you need to prepare, that you need to pay for the exam, that you need to pay for a fee, and that you need to maintain it. Okay, so this is all things that you need to do. What is in for you? What is the return on investment that you're going to get from that? And when that return on investment stops being good. I mentioned last week that when I got my CISSP, I used to have the Security Plus before that. When I got my CISSP, when it came the time to renew my Security Plus, I didn't renew it because it didn't make sense. The CISSP is a higher credential than the Security Plus. The Security Plus served its purpose at the time, but after a time, it didn't make sense for me to continue paying a yearly fee and continue trying to chase those CPAs or CEUs. So when it comes to certifications or degrees or whatever it is, you need to put those two things into consideration. How is that going to work for me right now in the next 3 years or whatever it is, while that certification is valid? So, and then I'm going to put money, I'm going to put effort, I'm going to probably have to dedicate whatever it is, my Saturday, I'm not going to be able to watch my soccer game or my telenovela, whatever it is, just to get this done. So what is for you at the other side of that? You always need to consider that. I hope that that helps. Any other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who have attended all 3 sessions, I really appreciate it. Like I said at the end of every session, you could be anywhere, but you chose to be with us, and that to me is huge. And I hope that you have gotten some value out of these things. Before you leave, next slide, please. I am going to ask you, yeah, keep on going. Yeah, next slide. So for the people that is here, and for the people online, Anthony is gonna put the link. I was gonna ask you that you take 2 minutes of your time to complete this survey. It is important to us. It really helps us, see the value on these things and to program better sessions for all of you. So we really appreciate that you take your time to complete this survey. We do look at these results, and every time that we're going to do this again, we look at these surveys before we start the next cycle. So in a way, you are helping for the next batch, the next cycle, always continuous improvement, Kaizen. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a great 3 weeks. For those of you who just joined us tonight, that's great. If you join us all 3 sessions, that's great. If you join 2 out of 3, that's great as well. I really appreciate you being here, and I really hope that this was of value to you. And thanks again. Have a good evening, and we'll hope to see you soon at the hub again. Thank you. All right. Yeah, you can stop recording.